I have Patrick with me, Campbell, the only one, founder and CEO of ProfitWell, which recently joined forces with Paddle. There was a little
Yes.
bit of news in the SaaS tech, microcosm. Beyond excited to listen into this one, Patrick. The
Oh no.
title of your session is very on brand. I'm sure you will have a lot of juicy takes on it. Most wrong.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I think it's one of those things where I think we only have 10 minutes, so I'm gonna jump in if that's cool
Yes,
with you. Yeah,
absolutely.
because
Go for it.
yeah, so as Armando was saying, Patrick Campbell, I'm the CEO founder of a company called ProfitWell. We just recently sold. I'll tell you a little bit about us in a second. But I've been talking about pricing now for about a decade, particularly in the SaaS and subscription space. And wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a framework as much as I can in 10 minutes, and then also balance it out with some tactics here. But just in the nature of the beauty, hold on a second. Let me share my screen here. Just in terms of the beauty of the Hot Takes live kind of ethos here, I wanted to start off with a nice little hot cake. And that hot take is basically you, and it doesn't really matter what role you're in, what type of business you're in, et cetera. You're a scaredy cat when it comes to your pricing. And it's mainly because when you think about pricing, and I've seen this time and time again in different companies, pricing is one of those things that sits at the intersection of both important and uncomfortable. And whenever we have things that sit at the intersection of that, all of a sudden, like we end up getting really scared, and all of a sudden go to the path of least resistance, which is another marketing campaign or a new sales playbook or a new feature or something like that. And unfortunately, this is costing you like a good amount of money. And I know you might be thinking like, that's okay, Patrick. Like, I'm awesome. My business is amazing. Like, everything's great or everything can be great. And pricing's important, but I'm not really sure if I really need to listen. Like, here's some data to kind of like really, really take you through and kind of punch you in the face a little bit. Um, and it really gets into like what's happening in the market, and not the market as in like, oh, there's a downturn right now or something like that, but just in the market over the past decade. I pulled this fresh data actually a month ago. And what's really kind of fascinating is that if you're a business, not just in like the greater business community, but specifically in tech, there's just these hard constraints that we're facing today that we weren't facing long ago. The first one is that right now, if you start a business today, you're going to have about 15 to 16 times the number of competitors than if you started that business 10 years ago. And this is because we've made it quote unquote easy to get started. You can spin up a website, spin up a server, everyone and their mother can have like a SaaS app and an ebook and all these other things. And all of a sudden there's just a lot more noise in the market. And because of that noise, and because we haven't had like a brand new marketing channel since 2015, I guess TikTok counts, but we've gone from new marketing channels every single quarter to new marketing channels every 5 years. You're also seeing CAC, your customer acquisition costs, up about 130% over the past decade. So those customers who are costing you $100 to acquire 10 years ago, they're now costing you over $200 to acquire today. And then you might be thinking like, that's really cute, Patrick, but like we're in a really good space. We're the dominant part of the market. Our CAC is pretty good. Well, on the running side of your business, all of a sudden team tenure, like the people you're hiring across the board in tech, that team tenure is down a third, which is kind of insane to think about in the past 10 years. And then just kind of our way of kind of fixing that has been, oh God, let's pay everybody more, which means that it's not really solving the tenure problem, but we're not only having this tenure problem, but we're also paying people a lot more, which, is the whole philosophical discussion of whether that's great for the world or not. But for you, as someone who's trying to grow your business, it's a lot harder. And to bring this back to pricing, the reason that this is so important is because a lot of the leaders, a lot of the people you're getting advice from, from back in the day, for lack of a better phrase, they are so focused on the acquisition part of the market that you as a leader need to really, really think about how you can grow beyond just kind of selling and spending your way out of the hole that's been created by the market kind of coming into its own. And what I mean by this is if you really think about breaking down the three big growth levers within your business, acquiring customers, monetizing them, and retaining them, what you'll find is that most of the growth from the hyper growth companies that's coming from is from your monetization and your retention. Let me show this to you for a second. So we did a study where we broke down these three particular levers, and we wanted to figure out if we improved each of them by the same relative amount. So we improved lead flow by 1% versus improving your revenue per customer by 1% versus improving your retention by 1%. What would be the impact on revenue? And what we found is that if you improve these things by 1%, you're going to not necessarily see the most revenue come from improving your acquisition, improving your sales. And this isn't to say that like we should not spend as much money as we do in sales and marketing. You're going to spend probably 60% or more of your budget on sales and marketing. But it is to say if we really evaluate these other areas of our business, we'll probably find that we're not spending as much money as we should, or is not spending as much time. So that's my like quick punch in the face, and I'm out. No, I'm just kidding. Like that, I'm not going to leave you kind of hanging there. But we're going to talk a little bit about like how to actually think about this and how to fix this. Again, only got 10 minutes, so only got a few things that I can share with you. But to give a really quick background on where some of this data comes from, my background's in econometrics and math, which is code for having a lot of friends as a child. That's my dad joke of the day. But I help run a company now called Paddle. ProfitWell got bought by Paddle, and we basically help subscription businesses run and grow automatically. And where this data comes from is we have this metrics product that basically 30,000 different subscription companies use to get all of their free financial reporting. So we're able to study that particular data, and that's where all this information is kind of coming from. So when I give you data, it's not just me, pulling out of my bum here. It's like actual data that's happening within the market. And the way we make money is we, have a couple of tools that help with your pricing and your retention, as well as with your billing and tax and those types of things. And so, not trying to sell you, just trying to give you that context. But the two things I want to kind of walk through is one, like how to think about pricing, and then two, how to actually change your pricing. And there's a bunch of things that go in between those two pieces, but we're not going to have time to go deep on that. And the first thing around pricing is one, obviously it's important. Obviously, we've talked about it, but two, what are the levers that you actually have with pricing? I think it's a really, really important thing that we don't really think about as a company or as an industry as much as we should. And what I mean by that is when you think about your business, and again, it doesn't matter what kind of business you are, everything that you've done is like gone into creating some sort of value. And because we don't trade like goat for wheat in most of the markets that we play in, we basically say that value is worth this much. And so the way to think about your price at a very 30,000 foot view is your price is the exchange rate on the value that you've created. And what's kind of beautiful about that is if we go a little bit lower, we can start to realize that everything we're doing is driving someone to a point of conversion or justifying that product or that value or that price that we're putting on that value. And so your pricing becomes, your monetization becomes not only the number you're charging, but also who are you going after? We can go up market. We can change verticals. There's a whole host of things that we can do. It goes into what product are you offering? Not only what the actual features are, but how do we package those features? Do we put them in 3 tiers? Do we take some out and make them add-ons? And then ultimately it does get into the price, but not just the actual price point, but it also gets into like all of the different things that you can do with the positioning of your company. And to give you a really, really quick like evolution of pricing, most of us start off with like just one particular tier, right? We were like, let's just keep it simple. We're launching the night after, like, let's just get it out there and kind of go from there. But oftentimes what we realize is like, oh, we have different customers we sell to. So let's have good, better, and then best, right? But maybe those features differentiating these different tiers aren't really great. So we start to realize like, well, what if we develop those a little bit? What if we had an enterprise tier? And what if we started specializing those particular features in these individual tiers? And this is where most of us end up stopping because most of the time we end up not really thinking through like, well, how can I extend this? How can I get all of those different types of customers? And one of the primary ways to get all of those different types of customers is by using something that's called a value metric, which is basically how you charge. It could be up to a certain amount of a particular data point in a given month. It could be based on kind of like Twilio, where you're charging on an incremental basis. And it could be a bunch of different ways that you actually structure it. But this value metric based pricing tends to be the best way to price, especially in the world of SaaS, mainly because you're charging customers for what they're actually using, not necessarily charging customers for like too much and then they end up churning. We're not going to be able to go super, super deep in how to set these value metrics, but this is the one big thing that if you had to go deep on something that's going to be a little bit harder, this is the thing that separates those companies because they're basically baking growth into how they make money and how they're actually pricing, because all of a sudden those customers are going to use more and some customers are going to use a lot more, and therefore they're going to upgrade really, really quickly.